こっちのリップとスプレーマニキュアもお願い。このウィッグかわいい。そろそろ出発の時間ですね。
Melody
少しだけ。
disguised.
同じく。
Whoa, ominous. That's a great shot.
トイレに行ってくる。いいよ。荷物ちゃんと見ててね。
暗殺の話はお前どう思う？
心音を聞いた限り、すべてを納得した上で暗殺チームに合流したわけじゃないわね。
Oh yeah.
だろうな。
でもクラピカには何者よりも先立つ決意。
He'll use the opportunity nonetheless,
自分
right?
のすべてを犠牲にしても、それを優先している結果の判断だと思うわ。
自分を殺す人生に意味あるか？
お嬢様、遅いですよね。
Was that her in the background?
この仕事が片付いたら、
Black
そ
hair?
の金で俺は世界をバイクで回る。
いいわね。
It does sound nice.
人生を楽しまないのは罪だぜ。
人生いろいろ。何に重きを置くかは人それぞれだわ。
Now hold on, they're focusing on that aircraft taking off.
どうしたの？
Oh god, she got on
お
there.
嬢様がいません。
何？
パパ、嘘つき。
It was her.
うまいこと言って。
Oh, he didn't. Okay, she didn't get on.
本当は
Okay,
私をオークショ
good.
ンに連れて行きたくないんだわ。いいもん。一人で行ってやる。
I was just going to say, this gives Chrollo the chance, doesn't it? Whoa.
全員揃ったようだな。
Okay, so they got more, not just them.
ノストラードが一人新たに連れてくるそうだ。ち、あのインチキ占いのおべっか。
Whoa, interesting, interesting.
依頼は幻影旅団の抹殺。
Easier said than done.
競売に奴らがまた来るかもしれねえ。お前らはシルバー。ゼノじゃ。ゼノ？ゼノって何色だ？ただの本名じゃ、二人ともな。何？
To strike that fear, perhaps.
指図は受けない。俺たちのやり方でやる。
Damn straight.
シルバー、ゼノってまさかゾルディック家か？
Oh, he just realized now.
彼らがキルアの家族。
別にいいじゃん。呼び名なんて。
Look at this guy.
無理に足並みを揃えることもあるまい。
あんた、
拙い連携は混乱を招くだけだ。私は一人で。
Of course he is.
ついこの間まで片田舎の一組長だった野郎が、今じゃこの俺とタメ口危険だからな。
Look at this internal conflict.
男のジェラシーは見苦しいな。てめえ
Yeah, that'll get him.
なんだこの野郎。言っておくがな、誰もてめえらなんぞ認めてねえからよ。お前の働きには期待している。十分な見返りは用意するつもりだ。
ええ。
Yeah, he knows. He knows exactly how to get something out of this.
警察が協力してるんですか？
ヨーク新市長の選挙資金は6割方闇献金で賄われた。
Of course.
警察署長はその市長の子飼いの男だ。
But that title, though, it's still lingering in my mind.
大変。ボスが逃げちゃったの。トイレで着替えた上で逃げてるから計画的みたいなのよ。
どうした？
お嬢さんが逃走したそうです。
何？
行き先は我々と同じでしょう。
だがネオンは参加賞を持っていない。会場どころか検問で跳ねられる。
Hold on, there's someone else on her tail.
OK です。どうぞお通りください。
Black suit?
よかった。検問通れなくて。
Oh my god.
本当にありがとう。
どういたしまして。
Hey! Okay, so he's covered up the symbol on his forehead.
でも私のパパはと言いかけて結局引き返していきました。
Shalnark.
タクシーに一人でした。はい、失礼します。
ご苦労様。
占いが得意なんだってね。
Oh god.
誰かに聞いたことがあるんだ。どれくらい当たるの
100発100中なんだって。
Oh,
なんだってって。
he's gonna get his
君が占
fortune.
ってるんでしょ？
勝手に手が動いちゃうの。
へえ、すごいね。俺も占
The shift in demeanor. He's good.
じゃあ紙にフルネームと生年月日、血液型を書いて。
Oh, am I gonna get an actual full name?
クロロールシルフル。変わった名前ね。
Lucifer.
仲間には
Ah.
団長と呼ばれてるけど。
何それ、もっと変。
This is going to be fascinating. He's observing. Oh, yeah. Whoa.
それがその月の週ごとに起こることを予言してるらしいから、もう一つ目の出来事は終わってるかも。
Okay.
へえ。大切な暦が一部欠けて、残された月たちは盛大に弔うだろう。
The members of the troop?
喪服の楽団が奏でる旋律で、下月は高く穏やかに運ばれていく。
Oh. Hmm.
合ってるよ。この一つ目の詩なんだけど。
あ、ダメダメ。
Oh, she
私
doesn't.
ね、自分の
Yeah.
名前一切見ないのはなるべく自分が関わらない方が当たる気がするから。
じゃあ一つだけ聞いてもいいかな。この詩には死者の鎮魂を葬儀する部
Requiem
分
for
があ
the
るんだけど
dead.
君は死後の世界ってあると思う？
私はあまり信じてない。
These feel like really calculated
占いはあくまで
questions.
生きている人のためのもの。この場合はクロロさんのね。
Chrollo-san.
もしそういう表現があったなら、慰められるのは霊じゃなくあなたの方だと思う。だからその占い師はなるべく悪いことばかり占うことにしたんだって。
悪いこと？
そうすればみんなそうならないように願ったり努力したりするでしょって。
喪服の楽団が奏でる旋律で、下月は高く穏やかに運ばれていく。それでもあなたの優位は揺るがない。残る手足が半分になろうとも。
Huh.
幕愛劇に興じよう。
Half your limbs, eh?
新たに仲間を探すもいいだろう。向かうなら東がいい。きっと待ち人に会えるから。
The one who awaits. There's one.
俺はね、レイコンって信じてるんだ。だから死んだそいつが一番やりたがってたことをしてやろうと思ってね。
Whoa.
大暴れ。
Go wild. Might have to go super slow mo.
恐ろしく速い人。
Ah, okay, he
俺じゃなき
knows.
ゃ見逃しちゃうね。
There it is.
久々に血が騒ぐぜ。俺の獲物だ。
So you think?
血の道しるべ。わざと垂らしておく。同類にのみわかるように。香るように。
Yeah. But you're gonna go right into his trap anyways.
俺と同じ。殺人中毒者。
つまらないトラップは使わない。
よし、それじゃ行くか。
Okay, who's up top?
団長が珍しく暴れ方に条件つけたね。
条件なんて。
派手にやれ。
No. Inspired choice. That day of tears and mourning.
一部欠けて、残された月たちは盛大に弔うだろう。喪服の楽団が奏でる旋律で、下月は
A requiem.
高
Ah.
く穏やかに運ばれていく。残る手足が半分になろうと。
The limbs of the spider, eh? Oh.
幕愛劇に興じよう。
And then head east.
新たに仲間を探すもいいだろ
Oh.
う。向かうなら東がいい。
And he awaits.
待ち人に会えるか。
Oh.
なぜ
Wow.
なぜ
Oh God.
だなぜ俺はまだ生きてるんだ。
この魚はインドアフィッシュといってね、締め切った部屋でしか生息できない年魚だ。 食われた方は痛みもなく血も出ないので、燃料が消えるまで死ぬこともできない。
Whoa. This is cinema. Mm. Oh.
大切な小弓が一部欠けた。残された月たちは盛大に弔うだろう。喪服の楽団が奏でる旋律で。
Chrollo's Black Mass, if you will. Maestro.
ウボウさん、聞こえますか？俺たちからのレクイエムです。
Indeed.
どこか悲しみに満ちた嵐の夜が始まった。
The Maestro of Chaos. Ooh. Yeah, so I was told that it's going to continue into the credits. Dies Irae. That day of wrath. I mean, that easily could have worked. I mean, they've kind of worked it into this. Thanks. Yeah, I saw that hat. Ah, thanks. Okay, yeah. I mean, you know, the thing is, this is kind of how I expected episode 50 to be, right? Something of this ilk, you know, of this magnitude, right? Something really quite special. I mean, listen, this is beyond special. This is like a greatest of all time type moment. I mean, this has immediately become a core anime memory for me. I'll never forget this moment. This is one of those incredible, unforgettable moments, right? At one point, you know, I was just legitimately baffled, right? Again, given the incredible, one of the greatest needle drops I've experienced in recent memory. See, that's the thing I mean about a core memory. I mean, it's almost immediately made its way onto my, you know, greatest needle drop moments of all time, right? This is one of those moments. I'm always going to bring this up from now on. It is just incredible. It's masterful directing throughout the episode, but specifically those final moments, you know, the final 5-10 minutes of this episode. I mean, it is just glorious, isn't it? It is exquisite in its execution, in the delivery. I mean, thematically, it is so brilliant. So brilliant. I mean, it is, like I said, it's an inspired choice to incorporate Lacrimosa. I mean, to use Lacrimosa in this moment, that takes a lot of balls, man. That's a big call. That's an incredible call, because if it doesn't come off, if it doesn't actually function, it could potentially come off as quite pretentious. It could. But this is just a masterful use of it, right? And it's really quite rare. You know, listen, you know, today, as I kind of sat down to record episode 51 of Hunter x Hunter, I did not think I'll be listening to Lacrimosa, right? In that context as well. But oh my God, it fits like a glove, doesn't it? It is just perfection. The scene itself is perfection. You know, you just know it. You just feel it as you're watching it, right? It's not one of those moments that, you know, you kind of have to contemplate a few times. You kind of have to go back to it and you get a different understanding for it. No. It is just one of those moments, right? It's a given. The moment that needle drops and that scene plays out, it just plays out masterfully. Of course, you know, the sounds of the massacre, the rampage, right? The Phantom Troop running riot in the streets. I mean, it is essentially the most fitting tribute they could offer to this fallen comrade, right? And of course, Chrollo is the one who puts it into motion. And also now I have a full name. And of course, you know, the name itself, the last name specifically, yeah, it checks out, doesn't it? But of course, you know, there is a distinction there. It's not just straight up Lucifer. It's Lucilfer, right? But again, it's quite unmissable. So yeah, I mean, one thing is clear, right? This is one of, oh man, I know, a lot of these statements might kind of sound like, I'm kind of overhyping it. Maybe there's a bit of recency bias, but I don't know. I just truly feel like I've seen something quite special, right? Even in terms of a character prominently stepping out, right? Chrollo has arrived proper, and I feel like it's still kind of scratching the surface because a lot of his, his Nen abilities, him being a specialist, there's a lot of fascinating things at play here, but, a lot of it is still a bit of a mystery, right? It's still kind of up for speculation. And I've got speculation, of course, especially because there's a few standout moments, key moments that can really be used to further kind of speculate. But yeah, Chrollo has truly arrived at this point, and he is easily one of the best characters, one of the most intriguing characters of this anime, of this story, as of this point, right? And it's exciting, man. It's really, really damn exciting. Now, of course, the prophecy or his specific fortune, as told by Neon, there's a few things that are perhaps a bit concerning for him as the leader of the Phantom Troop, as someone who really truly cares for the Phantom Troop, right? This episode kind of reiterates that, be it the single tear that he sheds for the late Uvogin, right? And that is legitimate. And that right there is a real deal, right? That hit him. And that hit him hard because now he truly has confirmation that Uvogin has moved on, right? That he's not returning. Because up until that point, they just knew, most of them understood that he's probably dead. But again, they didn't know for sure, right? He was kind of just missing as well at that point. But, this kind of locks it in, right? It's kind of set in stone. And at that point, it hits him. And I believe he's legitimately sad for him. I mean, it's not even really a matter of, it could be a bit of both. No. The things he puts into motion, the way he chooses to celebrate Uvogin, that right there tells you how much respect he had for Uvogin, right? As a member of the Phantom Troop. It truly felt like he lost a piece of himself, right? As he lost a member of the troop, a limb of the troop, if you will, right? That's one of the things that kind of comes out, and it's one of the standout passages of this prophecy, of this fortune. Again, I'll get into that, of course. There's a lot of smaller moments to get into, right? But of course, in the grand scheme of things, you kind of just have to focus on that ending, the final 5-10 minutes at first, at least. And the crazy thing is, I'm just beginning to imagine the amount of people that legitimately did not know or might not have known that this right here, this needle drop, is one of the greatest pieces of music ever composed, right? This iconic piece of music. But yeah, as I'm kind of thinking about it, it's beginning to feel like, perhaps a solid chunk, or maybe even a major chunk or a majority of the people, watching that moment might not actually even know that this is meant to be this historic piece of music, this incredible, iconic piece of music that they've so masterfully incorporated, right? And it's so thematically relevant to the whole segment, right? To the whole notion of a tribute for their fallen comrade. It's just one of those things that you hope most people actually do understand, because it just heightens it so tremendously, doesn't it? Knowing that piece of music and the meaning behind that piece of music, right? And who composed that piece of music, or at least a certain section of it, right? Before passing on themselves. My God, it is what it is, I suppose. Let's be realistic. You cannot expect everyone to know about Lacrimosa. I mean, even saying that out loud kind of feels wrong to me. I mean, I truly felt that connection, that sense of respect that Chrollo does have for the members of the Phantom Troop, right? To see him emotional. I mean, yes, it's a single tear, but still, it's still quite an impactful moment. It's an incredible moment. And then, of course, this notion of go wild, right? Go absolutely crazy, right? He specifies that, right? And he specifies that for Uvogin, right? It's in his honor, right? And, there's this idea of him believing in the afterlife or believing in ghosts. And I believe that Chrollo believes that, after honoring his fallen comrade, right, the fallen member of the troop in this manner, he can truly rest, right? And, it kind of plays in perfectly with one of the lines of the prophecy. The 11th moon quietly rises, right? So to me, it kind of feels like the implication here, or, Chrollo's interpretation of it is that, after putting this into motion, after celebrating Uvo in this manner, I think he believes that, Uvo can be at rest and, he's going to just kind of move on, be content, be at peace, rather than becoming a wandering ghost, right? That's kind of tethered to this plane. I mean, it's just this really incredible and intimate moment near the conclusion, isn't it? As he speaks out to Uvo. I believe the line of dialogue there was, "Uvo-san, can you hear us?" Right? We're playing a requiem for you. But yeah, at this point, I'm really kind of excited, but also cautiously optimistic about checking out some of these other reactions, to see how other people, reacted, the raw reaction to that moment, right? Because it hit me hard. So yeah, down the line, I do want to check out a few of them. Realistically speaking, there's only really one or two, maybe three that I really do, have the urge to check out. Again, everyone's got their picks, and I am really quite picky myself as well in terms of, reaction type content that I do kind of gravitate towards. Not that, I have the time to be, watching most of it, but, anytime I do kind of have these moments, there's a few in my mind that I always kind of, that I always do kind of want to check out. And of course, as directed, some of these members of the Phantom Troupe that do take part, they go absolutely crazy because it's an absolute massacre and it is effortless for all of them. I mean, it legitimately just felt like a training session, right? Exhibition for the Phantom Troupe members that do take part, because there's a few missing, right? I didn't see Kortopi, I didn't see Nobunaga, though of course Nobunaga was back at HQ really quite recently, after he got outsmarted by the two boys, and the bandaged up fellow, the boxer guy. Those three did not take part, but then also there's one more that did not take part, one that rather made the choice to just watch it all from a distance, from higher ground, as if he is above it all, right? And listen, the things that us the audience knows about Hisoka, it completely checks out. It makes sense that he has no interest in taking part in this meaningless, mindless killing, right? Again, it's in the whole concept of it is to be as crazy as possible. It's just meant to be absolute carnage, right? Mindless killing, right? Running riot and all of that through the streets. That is not Hisoka's style. He picks and chooses. So, there he makes the choice, I think, to not listen to Chrollo, to not, accept an order from the leader of the Phantom Troupe, right? It's that, or maybe Hisoka is given a specific order to hang back, perhaps. I don't know. That seems a bit more unlikely. I think, this is specifically a choice that Hisoka made. Right. And of course, it appears that he plays a part in this prophecy as well, in the fortune that he receives, that Chrollo receives. The remaining months gather to mourn, right? And the mourners play a melody, and this is the melody. This is the requiem, isn't it? But, even there, within that, massacre scene, you see each and every one of them, how unique they are. Right, just through the expressions on their faces. I mean, a few of them, people like Phaeton and Machi, are really quite indifferent. They're just kind of doing their thing. But you see that Franklin, he's kind of enjoying it a bit, perhaps in the memory of Uvo, right? He's got a bit of a smirk, bit of a smile on his face. Shalnark seems to be in a good mood as well, but he's always kind of smiling. And then of course you've also got Pakunada, who's just being her, kind of usual stoic self, right? She takes more of a up close and personal approach, shooting people in the face. But yeah, I love the choice there to just cut out all of the sound of the massacre itself, because it felt really quite fitting to have just Lacrimosa playing in the background and Chrollo's narration, right? Kind of narrating really specific moments as well, right? A lot of it, a solid chunk of the fortune that he received from Neon on this night, a lot of it already kind of, took place, or it happened, a lot of it. But there's still a few, critical moments to come that, both us, the audience, has to kind of speculate about and contemplate, and Chrollo has to really think about as well, right? Now that he has this information. And that setup right there is one of the most fascinating and intriguing parts of this, right? Now that Chrollo has this prophecy, now that he has his fortune, how exactly is he going to, choose to kind of, I don't know, act on it? Because, the thing is, they've already kind of set up that, Chrollo is the type of person who does kind of believe in, at least this is my understanding of it from earlier on. I think this is in the first few episodes after they introduced them, after Gathering of Heroes, that, he believes that everyone has a role to play. And I think I mentioned there that I believe that Chrollo believes that, even Hisoka has a role to play, and he most likely understands that Hisoka, or he understands most likely Hisoka's intentions, his motives. And even now, I don't think he blames Hisoka for his, motives or intentions, because again, he believes or feels that everyone's got a role to play. And, this is after that segment, after him, claiming that, Judas wasn't really a traitor. But one of the reasons this setup is so exciting and just fascinating in terms of really kind of getting to see how Chrollo functions or how he chooses to address this is in this episode specifically, you really get to see just how much the members of the troop mean to him. Like I said earlier, it kind of really truly felt like he lost a piece of himself forever at that moment, right? And there is going to be a time to mourn. Once the mourning phase is done, there is going to be a search for new allies, right? And I believe the next bit of the dialogue there was, east is the direction to go. You will find one that awaits you. And of course, my immediate thought on that was, okay, it's alluding to Hisoka. And then, the next scene, the actual massacre itself, as he's narrating, you do see Hisoka by himself taking in all the chaos through the streets. And, even the look on his face, the expression on his face, you can kind of just tell he's not, he doesn't really approve of this. He doesn't really care much for this, all this mindless killing, perhaps. Again, it's not his style. It's just not. But going back to my point about how exactly or how is he potentially going to handle the situation, the fact of the matter is, there's a solid chance of it being true as well, of course, because a lot of these things have played out already. Like Neon specified, some of it may have already happened, and it did. Right, that was the official confirmation for Chrollo as well, that, okay, I have to take the rest of it really quite seriously as well, right? The 11th moon rising, again, a confirmation for him that indeed Uvo is dead now. So as of this point, apparently at least half of the Phantom Troop is on the chopping block. And that relates to the line specifying that even after losing half your limbs, you are going to remain supreme. Right, so he's going to be fine. He should be fine, but it's the members of the troop that are, again, on the chopping block. Let's see how he handles this, how he approaches this, how he possibly tries to change it, right? Because of course he doesn't want his members of the troop to die. Of course not. But the thing is, beyond Neon's abilities, these fortune-telling abilities, these prophecies, there's already been set up for the death of, many members of the Phantom Troop, possibly. You go back to the conclusion of the Heaven's Arena arc, right? The confirmation that indeed Hisoka does plan on hunting, or beginning the hunt, for the Phantom Troop members, perhaps. Now is the time, right? And all of this is meant to fall within the month, right? As specified by Neon or Neon herself. It's the weeks of the month. Right, so there is a bit of a cutoff. So that actually is really quite helpful for both us, the audience, and Chrollo as well, in terms of the time frame. Now, of course, maybe some things or something could be the long term rather than the near future. But my understanding as of this point is that these things are meant to be in that time frame. Right, it almost kind of feels like one of the stipulations of her abilities, right? Conditions of her abilities. I mean, it felt like there's a few conditions at play, even if she didn't actually put them into motion deliberately, kind of like Kurapika. To me, it kind of felt like if there are conditions at play in her abilities, it's more of a thing that just kind of developed on its own, right? Unconsciously, essentially. And some of the things do kind of feel like conditions, don't they? If you kind of look at, or restrictions rather, right? things like, oh, she never looks at the actual fortune herself, right? Because of the accuracy of it all. She believes that if she doesn't look at it, it'll be far more accurate. And then of course she's not able to look at her own fortune, right? But there's also that bit about, enjoying the interlude, right? The actual line of dialogue there was enjoy your interlude. So it's kind of, it's hinting at a bit of a break perhaps from the Phantom Troop as well, and that they might reappear at another point. And yeah, that kind of does fall in line with how some of these story arcs have been handled, right? It's kind of like tag you're in type situation here. In this arc though, specifically, a lot of it kind of came together. Everyone is at play in this arc, but sooner or later things are going to kind of deviate, and they are going to pivot into the next arc and the arc after that. So, I'm kind of at odds in terms of, okay, my understanding is that, yes, these things are meant to kind of play out. If they are going to play out, they are meant to play out within the month, right? And again, some of it is already at play and happened on this night already. But, again, that bit makes it kind of sound like, okay, after, perhaps the, goddamn it, I'm forgetting the name, the Yorknew city arc, perhaps after it all plays out, the potential death of many of the members of the troop, possibly, I might not see the Phantom Troop. I might not see Chrollo for some time yet, right? So that's a possibility as well here. But the thing is, now you kind of have to look at the potential death of half of the members, right? The limbs of the spider. So let's kind of look at some of the possibilities, right? Because you've got multiple parties at play at this point. You've got the Zolodics, Zeno, and Silva. They're a part of this now. They just showed up. The moment I said that, I'm kind of thinking of Miluki. He's still not here. Unless, of course, he got here and he's kind of laying low. And they'll just maybe show us a little bit later. But yeah, I do hope I get to see Miluki. Maybe once it gets to the whole Greed Island component of it, right? Because it is going to pivot to that at some point. Again, Gon and Killua are trying to get a copy of it. Maybe Miluki is going to be reintroduced at that point. But yeah, the Zolodics are here, right? And they've been hired for this purpose, to go after the Phantom Troop, and they are going to go after the Phantom Troop. So that's another exciting setup, right? A clash between the Zolodics. These are, again, the heads of the dragon, not just any Zolodic, right? These are the head honchos of the Zolodic clan. So, there's a possibility of them coming across multiple members of the Phantom Troop. There's a possibility of them coming across Chrollo himself. Now that right there has all the makings of a blockbuster encounter, right? The thing I said earlier about, this feeling a bit more in line with something that kind of feels like a 50th episode extravaganza, right? This could just be the beginning of it all, right? But again, folks, don't get me wrong. I really, really thoroughly enjoyed episode 50 nonetheless. I loved the focus of that episode, right? But this really truly felt like a milestone episode. This right here actually feels like it is going to remain one of the best episodes of the anime right up until the end. I could completely see that happening. One of the best episodes of the series. It's going to be in there in that list. I know for sure by the time I get to the final episode, episode 148, this episode right here is going to be in my top 5, top 3 easily, regardless of anything else that I see, right? But that's the exciting bit. There's still so much to get through. There could be other incredible moments such as this one. There could be. But there's also that danger of peaking as well. But yeah, again, that's also, subjective, right? Because it's entirely possible that for some people, this right here, this arc, this moment, this could be the peak of it for them, right? It's a matter of perspective, of course. But, the only thing I can say right now is that this right here is one of the most incredible moments, not just of this anime, but just anime altogether for me. But in terms of it being a matter of perspective, right, it being subjective, the thing is, as you've seen now, folks, over the past, handful of episodes, since the Yorknew City arc began, I've really taken to the Phantom Troop, and it just it's this exponential incline. It continues in this episode as they continue to flush out many of these characters, but specifically Chrollo, right, who takes center stage, finally steps into the limelight. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. He is so charismatic. He's charming. The character design itself has such screen presence. The voice acting has screen presence as well. Here in this episode, there's a few moments. It truly reminded me of Light Yagami, right? Because of course it's the same voice actor as Light Yagami. That really gentle disposition that's on display in this episode, right? At dinner, opposite to Neon. It's really quite reminiscent of Light Yagami, the fake persona of Light Yagami. Anytime he had to put on an act. But I don't think the same is applicable here, right? Yes, he's in disguise, and it's really I don't know. I like the look for him. He's a handsome lad, of course, but the look itself, I really enjoyed that look. It felt like he actually got younger. It felt like he looked younger because of this look, right? The hair is down. It's not slicked back in a ponytail. He's got that bandana of sorts, but of course that's more so to cover up the symbol on his forehead, the ink on his forehead. I like the look for him. I really did. But I still kind of get the feeling that I am seeing the true Chrollo, that I am getting to see a side of him that does exist, that it's not completely an act. I really truly don't feel like this is a full-on act, that he's just acting, putting on this masterclass performance, right? Though, of course, it's Neon. Neon isn't really someone that's, experienced or anything. And listen, she's really quite bratty. She continues that streak of being a bit of a brat as she, kind of loses her tail earlier on in the episode. And, it's kind of surprising that they lost track of her, especially Melody as well. But there it also kind of shows you that she's just a person herself. You can get sidetracked, you can get distracted, and she was kind of distracted, and they're actually having a really interesting conversation, aren't they? I think that conversation right there is something to come back to on many occasions, something to come back to perhaps even by the end of this specific arc. And again, to specify, I'm speaking of, the conversation between Basho, who's really quite, I don't know, in that moment, he's really quite, he's wise, isn't he? And I love that he's got his own ideas as well, his own plans. Though, of course, that kind of felt like a bit of a death flag as well, right? Him talking about how that once this gig is done, he's going to get on his bike and he's going to just travel the country. But yeah, going back to Chrollo and Neon, yeah, getting to see this side of Chrollo. But the thing is, I can't really even say this side of Chrollo, because up until this point, I haven't really seen that much of Chrollo, right? He's just kind of kept to himself. So even though you are able to kind of gain some insight from moment to moment in really specific situations, right? You can gain quite a bit of insight actually. And I do feel that I have a decent understanding of Chrollo already, right, in terms of how he's reacted to certain moments. But I do believe that here in this moment, he was kind of being sincere with Neon, because again, he has no reason to be faking a lot of these things. Yes, maybe he had to drive the conversation into a certain, direction, of course, for a really specific reason. And I'll get into that aspect of it, right? A lot of things there felt really deliberate, and that kind of plays into all of that setup for the past few episodes, right? Him taking an interest in Neon specifically, right? After finding out the things that she's done for, the mafia community, or a lot of the Dons, right? That are big fans of her ability and all that. And yeah, it made it really quite clear that he's taken an interest in her. But see, the thing is, at that point, he's not around the members of the Phantom Troop, right? He's not really truly having to be in that leadership position, right? So I think for that reason, he was kind of able to maybe drop his guard a bit. And, listen, he had no reason to cry or fake cry in front of Neon. That was legitimate. That was from the heart. He felt that. He felt that loss, right? And yeah, I do feel that he was being sincere in a lot of those moments. Other than, of course, he's putting on a disguise and he's presenting himself as someone he's not, in the sense that he's not going to mention that he's the leader of the Phantom Troop. Listen, I'm sure that a lot of people might believe that it's an act, right? And, fair enough. But I can only give my take on it, my opinion on the matter. And I feel that it came off really quite natural. He's really quite personable. And the thing is, because of Chrollo's approach, you get to see a different side of Neon, because in those moments, you kind of get to see a Neon that is, she has a lot to offer. you do kind of gain some fantastic insight in terms of the origins of her ability, or her beliefs in her ability, right? The reasoning behind it. And that's also another thing, isn't it? Neon really appreciated being treated as an equal, maybe as an adult. She really responded to the legitimate, the genuine interest that Chrollo was showing in her abilities. And even beyond that, just kind of the origins of it, right? Her thought process on it, her belief system, and all of that. She really appreciated that. But also, there's another component to this. I thought it was really quite clear cut, right? That a lot of it is really quite calculated and deliberate, right? In terms of him asking really specific questions about the ability itself. So, to me, it felt really quite clear that, one component of all of this is to gain a solid understanding for the ability itself, right? I mean, there's a really, really significant moment. And it's one of the rare moments his demeanor actually kind of shifts. And this is as he's really, really kind of dialed in, right? And observing the ability at play, right? Of course, this is after he requested his own fortune. And, she tells him, write down your birth, date of birth, I believe, your full name, and your blood type, right? So there, you've got a lot of the basic information right there, right? But, the most significant moment, in my opinion, there is him just being, locked in, laser focused, hyper focused at the ability itself in motion. He's really locked in on the ghost apparition thing, isn't he? That's one of the few moments, it's almost as if his character kind of shifted. And, there's a moment later on, right, that kind of plays into a bit of this speculation. He's got that book. There's a significant moment as he closes the book, right? There's a shot that focuses just on that, right? And on the outside, you've got this handprint and, of course, writing that I do not understand. I mean, of course, in the manner it's presented, you can see that book is meant to be really quite important to Chrollo, or the things that he's able to do, perhaps, right? And also, this is something I had to kind of go back to because I really wanted to get a look at the cover. But, a few frames before that, before he closes it, you get to see two different pages, right? And the first page, it had one of those flying fish, right? The indoor fish, rather. It had like an entry on those. But then there's also another page and it had a photo of someone else entirely, right? So to me, that kind of felt like his book of abilities. So I think that part of it really checks out, that he likes to get information. He likes to gain an understanding for these abilities. Now he's actually using the indoor fish. I mean, that right there is such a, I don't know, such a baffling sight. The first time I see it, the indoor fish that happen to be carnivores that enjoy the taste of human flesh. But also the catch there is that, the person that's on the, opposing end of this, and in this case, it happens to be one of those assassins, they don't feel any pain and there's no blood, I believe, right? So, this ability, is it, I don't know, I'm trying to see, I was about to say maybe you could kind of use it for torture, but it would have to be just psychological torture rather than actual physical torture. And these Nen fish can only function in an enclosed space, indoor, right? It makes sense. So the moment he does kind of close the book, right, and opens the window, they disappear, right? Because now it's not an enclosed place anymore. But I think another significant moment there is him actually closing the book, right? I mean, the fact that he's got the book open, that in itself is really quite significant, right? Why exactly does he need that open in that specific case, right? And again, like I said, if you go through the frames, you get a quick glimpse of an entry about the fish, right? You see the illustration, and then in the next page, it's this man who's got green hair. So I'm guessing that's another ability. So here's my thought on his specialist abilities, I suppose. I think he's got, again, since he is a specialist, it's just something that might be unique to him. And it is unique to him. I think he's got the capacity or the ability to maybe replicate these abilities once he gains enough understanding for these abilities, right? A functional understanding of these abilities, but also, they're in this book. And since he is using these indoor fish, these Nen fish, and there is, an entry for that in the pages before he closes it, I think it's safe to assume the page must have been open to that ability, right? That entry. So I think that might be a component of his abilities that, he is able to replicate, but there's, of course, conditions, stipulations, all of that, right? As any other specialist that I've seen already. I've got Kurapika, who's got a lot of conditions, self-imposed conditions, and restrictions, and then, possibly Neon or Neon as well. So yeah, at this point, I'd say, his ability, or a part of his ability, is to potentially replicate other abilities. And perhaps that's one of the main reasons he is so hyper-focused on getting really specific information about Neon's abilities, right? So, I mean, if that is the case, if I am on the right track, that is some ability. That is some ability, and that might just be one component of it. I'm not even sure. I might just be speculating one aspect of his ability. And ultimately, if that does end up being the case, it kind of makes sense that he took such an interest in Neon's abilities, right? So much so that he kind of pivots and kind of goes solo for that reason, right? But of course, he's always in contact with, his Phantom Troop members as he gives Phaeton the orders. So let's actually go through the prophecy itself, the fortune that Chrollo receives from Neon, right? There's some fascinating stuff in this. I mean, a lot of it is actually kind of done and dusted by the end of this episode, right? A lot of it just kind of comes to be, doesn't it? But there's still some moments that are, head scratchers, or rather really exciting, things to speculate about. So I did go back and made a note of the actual prophecy itself. So let's get into it, right? Again, she specifies that my fortunes are a little bit strange, right? And that, the verses are kind of, associated with, or they correspond with, the weeks of a month, right? So, the implication here is that it's meant to be over the span of this current month, right? September. So I'm going to go through it piece by piece and give my take on, or my interpretation of it, right? A lot of it is really clear cut. I think it's, really clear cut. But then there's some really, exciting moments that are open to interpretation, to multiple interpretations, actually. But, things like the calendar loses a precious component, right? Of course, Uvo, the death of Uvo. And of course, the calendar makes a lot of sense, 12 months, and you've got 12 members of the Phantom Troop. But also, the thing to note here is that it's a calendar, meaning, that precious component can be replaced, right? It's a yearly thing. So it kind of plays into some of the other components of this prophecy a little bit later on, right? Yes, there's a time to mourn, but there's also the possibility to make new allies. But yeah, continuing on to the next bit, the remaining months gather to mourn, right? And that's, again, pretty clear cut. The other members of the Phantom Troop, at least a handful of them, right? Like I said earlier, a few of them are not present, and maybe one of them makes the choice not to take part at all, again, in Hisoka. But yeah, moving on, the mourners play a melody, right? While the 11th moon quietly rises, right? So to me, that's kind of like the ghost of Uvo, right? Because again, Chrollo believes in the afterlife, and he believes in ghosts, and he believes that, he has to give Uvo, or his spirit, that the peace. And of course, it's that bit that gets him emotional. But yeah, let's continue. The chrysanthemum withers and falls to lie on the ground beside bloody scarlet eyes. So of course, that right there, there's no mix up there, right? That right there is a clear cut, reference to Kurapika, the last remaining person who can have the scarlet eyes. And of course, it makes complete sense. It's associated with this fortune, to this prophecy, right? But that is damning. That is really quite damning, because my interpretation of that is that, Kurapika might actually, take down a few more of them, right? But he's going to die in the process as well. So yeah, in terms of potentially losing members of the Phantom Troop in maybe the upcoming episodes, by the end of this arc, yeah, it's concerning for sure. I'll be honest, like I said, I don't really want any of them to die, really. But yeah, you can have this scenario, the bit of an unthinkable scenario, really, this early on, especially for someone like Kropika. But maybe it's not that early on anymore. If it gets to that kind of situation, him against a few of them, and he's able to do something kind of like a self-destructive type thing that he puts into motion, right? Taking out a few of them, but also goes down himself. Yeah, that's not that far-fetched. It's not. As Melody specifies in the beginning of the episode, he is dead set. He is really quite determined. And he's, open to doing anything to achieve the things that he wants to achieve at the moment, right? So, yeah, that's a concerning thought for sure. But there's also, again, a few other possibilities. Like I said, Silva and Zeno are a part of this whole thing now. And then, of course, there's that possibility, the real possibility of Hisoka just beginning his hunt. His initial motives of joining the Phantom Troop, or, kind of trying to pass off as a member of the Phantom Troop. Sooner or later, he is going to try to get in a position to go up against Chrollo. So yeah, there's a lot of possibilities there. But again, the really interesting aspect of this is how exactly is Chrollo going to try and, save the limbs of the spider. And also, the thing is, I firmly believe that, Chrollo kind of understands all of this, right? He's able to interpret all of it, right? And, the fact that, Scarlet Eyes are brought up in this really specific situation as well. He's going to know, this is alluding to, again, that clan that they massacred, but, I think he'll easily kind of put it together. Oh, okay. So it makes sense that someone holds a grudge against us, right? It's entirely possible that it's a member of that clan. But the thing is, I really do have to prepare myself for, the potential death of maybe multiple members of the Phantom Troop, right? I think it could be tough. I'm not sure. It'll be interesting if it happens, how exactly I'll feel in the moment. And the thing is, I also kind of firmly believe that Chrollo knows, this is kind of alluding to Hisoka, right? The one who awaits, once you kind of head east. But there's this idea of, or the line that specifies, search out new allies, right? That kind of feels like it could be something long-term, if indeed, he does end up losing a few members of the Phantom Troop in this arc, right? So, the idea of rebuilding the troop, right? Recruiting new members. So that's an exciting one, even though, it's a sad prospect, to potentially lose some of the current members. Kind of want to go back to, him closing that book up in the cemetery building. Again, how fitting, right? That he takes Neon there. And then, of course, there's that incredible scene as the anime kind of gets to add a bit of its own flavor. And that scene of Maestro Chrollo conducting the Requiem, right? Their take on the Dies Irae. That is just incredible. It's an incredible moment. And of course, there's some incredible art direction in this episode as well. Iconic imagery, some fantastic animation. And, for this one, the sound comes back in, right? As once again, he narrates it, right? The fortune or the prophecy. But this time, since it is meant to be that Day of Wrath component of it, you hear all of it, right? Them on their rampage. Right. And oh my God, just Finks out here, it's nothing. It's legitimately barely even a training session. He's just twisting these necks like it's nothing. You've got Phaeton just decapitating people left, right, and center. You've got Machi, again, really quite indifferent. She's just, I don't know, she's kind of bored, but she's doing her thing and she's incredible at it. Yeah, it's an incredible sight. It truly is. But especially those moments of the court composer, the maestro, the conductor reveling in all of that chaos, that carnage on Uvo's behalf, on his late friend's behalf. Are you listening, Uvo-san? Right? Incredible, man. Incredible moments. And to me, those moments of Chrollo up top on that building, the cemetery building, that is iconic imagery. It really is. There's a few frames in there that are just, I know those are going to be, just all-timer type frames for me. I mean, it simply is an all-timer moment. It's an all-timer episode. But right at the conclusion of the episode as well, there's just some fantastic directing choices, right? The choice to have the score kind of play into the ending, right? That is, I mean, honestly, that's really the only choice. You can't have that ending theme kick in that moment. You just can't. It just does not fly. It just does not, it wouldn't make sense at all. But, I really appreciated the narrator in this one. It was the start of a stormy night, fierce and drenched, with blood. And to me, that's kind of describing the day of wrath component of this. And then the second part of it is all about, the day of tears and mourning, right? Lacrimosa. Also, a few more things, things like, the Zoldycks. You see that Zeno and Silva, they do take note of Kurapika as he walks in, right? The thing is, these are masters, absolute masters. Could they just easily clock that, yeah, these chains are conjured? They're checking out Kurapika as he came in. They're giving him that side eye. And the thing is, they have no idea that this person that they're looking at actually passed some of their testing gates at the Zoldyck estate, at Kukuru Mountain. And also another reoccurring component of this, or for, sorry, not Zoldyck, for Chrollo specifically, is the pen. I mean, there's this really interesting thing, right? He's using these pens to straight up just stab people, right? Just kind of, just plunging them deep into people's skulls even, right? That one guy had pens all over him. And then, of course, one in the skull. And then, of course, there's a focus on the pen as well earlier on, right? As the fortune telling element or component of it is taking place, right? So it gives a whole new meaning to, the pen is mightier than the sword, or it gives a bit of a dual meaning in this specific situation. But yeah, I think that should do it for this one, folks. Incredible episode. It's an all-timer. It truly is. And it's immediately become like a core anime memory for me. It's become like a core needle drop moment for me, right? It's incredible, just incredible. And of course, I thoroughly enjoyed that. And if you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you're interested in early access to the next few episodes right now, or maybe even timer-based full length or full opacity, consider checking out the Patreon page and potentially supporting the channel. If you are interested, the links are in the description and the pinned comment. Also links to social media if that's your thing. Right then, thank you so much for joining me, folks, and thank you for your time, because time is precious. It really is. And I do hope to see you again soon for episode 52. Until then, take it easy.